Well, we have much to be thankful for, don't we? Although often it's a little tough to feel that thanksgiving in our hearts, even though we know that our families, our friends, our world is so giving, offers so much for us. And I think our story today about Daniel interpreting the king's dream, which the king eventually shares his great thanksgiving for, illuminates this topic for me a little bit. Because in the king, we see someone who starts off by threatening all the wise men of Babylon, including the trapped Israelites, Daniel and his friends. If they can't not only interpret his dream, but tell the king what it is. The king doesn't even want to share what the dream is with them. And they say, that's impossible. We can't do what you want. And he, in return, says, well, I'll kill you if you can't. And weirdly enough, I can kind of relate to this at times. I think often we all can. That when people are really good for us or good to us, when they serve us, when they meet us where we want them to meet us at, we're very thankful. Otherwise, often we don't want anything to do with them.
Daniel 2, 7 through 23. Once more they replied, let the king tell his servant the dream, and we will interpret it. Then the king answered, I am certain that you are trying to gain time, because you realize this is what I firmly decided. If you do not tell me the dream, there's only one penalty for you. You have conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then, tell me the dream, and I will know that you can interpret it for me. The astrologers answer the king, there is no one on earth who can do what the king asks. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any mage or enchanter or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods, and they do not live among humans. This made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree was issued to put the wise men to death, and men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone to put to death the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. He asked the king's officer, why did the king issue such a harsh decree? Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel. At this time, Daniel went to the king and asked for time so that he might interpret the dream for him. Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends Hanai, Mishael, and Azariah. He urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven and said, praise be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. He reveals deep, hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors. You have given me wisdom and power. You have made known to me what I asked of you. You have made known to us the dream of the king.
You know, when we encounter strangers, even encounter friends and family who don't quite live up to our expectations, we tend to hold a seat of judgment towards them. Doesn't mean that we're not sometimes thankful for them, but we feel this contention. You know, why can't you just do what I ask? Why can't you just be the person I want you to be? And I think we see this kind of painted large on the world today. Our kind of hard feelings about our differences, our tough feelings, essentially, towards those who don't behave like we want them to behave. We can feel this way towards ourselves as well. I think we have much to give thanks for in every moment. For our intellect, for our deep-seated love and wisdom, our patience and kindness. And indeed, even those tough moments are often moments of possible growth. We tend to think of someone who seems contentious, who seems judgmental as something we have to change. But indeed, I think every single moment in our lives can eventually be used for good. And that we don't have to hold even the toughest, the harshest aspects of history even so hurtfully. I know it's kind of a tough idea, but I see that in my own life. I had a lot of tough moments growing up in one way or another, as I think we all did. And the older I get, the more I look back at those moments and realize that I've learned a lot from them. I'm the person I am because of this or that. These things that I used to rail against have actually served me so well. You know, I think growing up and learning to be a less selfish being, as I hope we all strive to be, is a process. And that selfishness in my life brings that contention. It brings that friction, that judgment towards this or that person who's different than me, that dismissal of another religion, another race, gender identity, sexuality, whatever it is. I think it tends to stem from unthankfulness, in a sense, judgment. And so today, I think it would be nice just to open our own hearts towards just thankfulness for it all, just for a moment. Even that tough thing. Saying, you know what? I think I will learn from this. I wouldn't wish it on anyone else, but I think I've grown. I'll continue to grow because of these tough moments. Weirdly enough, it's sad that we often have to go through tough moments to grow. In Buddhism, we have this idea that the Buddha, our Buddha spirit, which is actually within every person, will learn from every situation. And eventually, every single one of us lives into that Buddhahood. And in our tradition, what Emanuel Swedenborg spoke about, he said something very similar. That angelic heart at the core of every being will eventually use every single moment of our lives for good. We'll come to realize that, yes, it was tough, but we've learned from it. And starting from a place where we're finite individuals and leaning into learning to grow into the divinity of God, that infinite sunlight of spirit and love, takes a little friction often. But it doesn't always have to. So giving thanks for those more frictionless moments is good as well. Working to let go of that unthankfulness, which, funny enough, often brings that friction. And realizing that we have so much to give thanks for. You know, Alyssa and I just celebrated our, fourth anniversary. I should know this, right? Yesterday. And we've been kind of debating whether or not we're getting married, right away, essentially here in Canada, or with our families in the US. And we've been a little bit back and forth about it. And I think we've possibly decided. I'll let you know. I'm leaving you hanging. You have to come next week and the week after. To find out. But yeah, incoming. We'll let you know. But there's so much to give thanks for with this partnership and so many good things. But also, I think, in those harder moments of, days and days after the pandemic of, spending time with each other in the same very small apartment, Thankfully, I don't think we took it too bad, but I'm sure there were some moments of impatience, right? Some closeness issues. I can't think of anything specific, otherwise I tell them. But I think we learn from those things. In community, we tend to have friction. It's what it is. I tend to project my stuff on other people. We tend to actually judge other people for what we don't want to see in ourselves. It's true. It's what psychology tells us. And we hold it. We hold it in a tough place because we don't think it serves. But I think even that we have to give thanks for. If we want to truly, I think, appreciate the best moments, the beautiful relationships, the wonderful family and love in our friends and families, even those that aren't related to us, that are truly our brothers and sisters, images of mothers and fathers all around us. I think we just have to open ourselves to giving thanks to it all. If our spirit is truly rooted in divinity, if that light of consciousness that is at its root peace and Sabbath, I think we have to look at other people as us, not to be used by us, but as us, with the same grace, the same blindness to some degree, not a blindness of pure ignorance, but a willingness to look toward the good. It's a funny thing uplifted by Scripture that angels, that we're called to look toward the good of others. I brought up Buddhism earlier. That's another major facet of Buddhist teachings. It's that the Buddha within only looks at the good and the Buddha of another, contemplates perhaps the growth needed to quite get there in fully formed versions, but really just loves them for what they ultimately are, for what we all ultimately are in our connection to divinity. And that's something wonderful to give thanks for. I'll admit it, I'll miss my family this Thanksgiving, this season. The more distance is emphasized between us because we can't visit them, the more I realize I'm close to them anyway. And I know it's tough for all of us nowadays, given that need for isolation and our inability to have that great gathering. I mean, we're sitting out here in the relative cold, and we're building up some strength to help Keenan with the Walnut Guild. But we ultimately, if it occurs, we ultimately have much to give thanks for, even when things are a little cold and a little rough, as we continue to explore this pandemic forward together, as we realize that even with that distance, we are very close and interconnected. So then let's just take a few moments, opening our hands if we feel called, taking a few deep breaths, accepting ourselves for what we are, accepting that angelic spirit within, that divine consciousness at the root of our souls, of our minds, forgiving ourselves and others, our qualms, our lapses perhaps, knowing that we each have an infinite road of growth ahead of us, receiving more and more of God's divinity, God's light and warmth, wisdom and love. Like the king in our story, celebrating the Daniel that interprets our dreamlikeness towards thankfulness. our sleepy judgmentalness towards a living praise of every moment. Celebrating our mothers, our fathers, and all our parental figures, those that hold us just by walking past, those that teach us through every moment, whether contentious, judgmental, loving, kind, compassionate, harsh, political, distant, realizing that we have much to give thanks for in every moment. That eventually the Lord within will use every single situation of our lives for good, for growth, and for a wise and loving community.
you.